What's going on, guys? This is Bo, back with another episode. This is going to be episode 6 of the Bo Knows podcast. This is an episode that is probably a year late. So I started this podcast a year ago in January 2024. The idea was to start this podcast 30 minutes long each episode. The idea was to create this podcast to where it's consumable on people's lunch break, driving to work or driving home from work. And, the idea of the show is to talk about, things that were top of mind for me, or like sports, my take on things, to kind of supplement the cookout podcast that I have with Eris and Adam. And my idea was to have, a once a week podcast, but I got about 5 episodes in, and then, life started to life, and it kind of fell off a cliff. So, I made a commit to get back on the saddle in 2025. So, I'm going to commit to getting back to doing one episode a week. I'm going to try and do an episode every Monday, I think. Monday or Wednesday. I'm going to think of which one I want to do. But definitely either Monday or Wednesday, I think, is what I'm going to shoot for. Maybe I record Sunday, or maybe I record Monday. I'm not sure. But anyway, the goal is 30 minutes, because I think that's a good amount, because that's the normal people's commute. But anyway, rambling per usual. But anyway, on this episode, I'm going to go over life updates, where the hell I've been in 2024. So I explained that. I'm going to give my thoughts on my Chicago Bears. So if you guys know me, you guys know I am a Bears fan. I'm wearing a Florida State Seminoles shirt, so you guys know I'm a Florida State Seminoles fan. I don't have enough time to get into that debacle of a university or program, so I'll save that for a different episode. So how do we fix the Bears? I'm going to talk about the college football championship between Notre Dame and Ohio State. That's going to happen on Monday. Each team's path to win, and then my picks that I'm going to bet for that game, and then the NFL divisional playoff game. So there are 4 games that's going on Saturday, Sunday. So I'm going to give my picks for those. And what I'm going to bet for those as well. So, already almost 3 minutes in, so we're going to burn through those. So, I'll start with my life. So, 2024 was crazy busy in terms of my life. So, for those of you who follow me on social media, Instagram, if you don't follow me on Instagram, my Instagram handle is at It's Botilli. So, you can follow me there. Basically, I post a lot about dodgeball, because I play dodgeball a lot, and travel around the country, and now internationally playing dodgeball. I actually have a tournament in Toronto next weekend, so I'll be in Toronto, Canada, from next Thursday to the following Monday afternoon, playing that next Friday and Saturday in the tournament. So it's been awesome. Played in around 20 tournaments last year, so obviously there's only 52 weekends in a year, so 20 of those I was playing, so my body was demolished by the end of the year. But coming off an Achilles injury in 2023, where I tore my Achilles, did a ton of work rehabbing to get back into playing shape and to be able to step on a court and play again. So I just had a ton of gratitude to be able to even step on a court and play again, let alone play well, and being able to, build relationships with a lot of the friends that I have now. And so I just, had a really good year in terms of, playing dodgeball, and now being able to compete at a high level. And, I've goals with my club team Flight, and looking to be activated on the Team USA roster, for the Worlds roster for next year's Worlds, is a goal of mine. So definitely been grinding and practicing hard for that. So those are things that are top of mind. So definitely been grinding for that. So I apologize for those who follow me that I post a lot about dodgeball. It's just thing that's really top of mind, and what I've been grinding for. So I do apologize. It is a bit much. So I'm going to try and put some more variety in my Instagram posts and stuff over the course of this year. So you can get a little bit more of me outside of dodgeball as well. So that's been a lot of my life in 2024. In a professional realm, I was working at an awesome company called QuickBase, but unfortunately, they had to do a company reduction of about 13% of the company, and unfortunately, my role was impacted, and I got laid off. So, but not the end of the world. I've been laid off before. Last year, a company I was at previously called Car Gurus, I was impacted by layoffs, and my role was eliminated there as well. So, been here before. We'll stand up again. Already been in the interview process for a few different places. So I got a good severance package from QuickBase. So, I'm in a good spot. Like I'm totally fine. And I'm thankful for the company and gotten no ill will or anything. The company is going to be great. And I'm such a big fan of the company and the people that are there. So excited to follow them as they move along. So very thankful for them. So, but during my time that I'm laid off, I was like, I can use this time to kind of, you know, be like, dang, this kind of sucks, or I can take this time off to, get in better shape. Because I do have tournaments, like I said, coming up. I have some international ones coming up, and then we have the USA Dodgeball Tour coming up. So I need to get in better shape. So, I have these goals that I want to achieve. So, been working out pretty consistently, and I want to pour more time into myself and kind of bet on me. So doing things like this, revamping the Bo Knows podcast, and then the Cookout podcast with Adam and Eris. I want to do more clipping of our shows, because I think I didn't do a good job of you know producing more clips of the Cookout podcast in 2024. And like me, Adam, and Eris, like we we produce some really funny clips sometimes, and I don't think I do a good job of showcasing that on Instagram and TikTok, even though that looks like it's going to be banned in a few days. So putting that on Instagram Reels or Twitter or X or whatever they call it, or YouTube Shorts. So I am going to do a better job of that. So that's my commit to everybody. So that's what I'm going to use this time while I am kind of a free agent in the professional world. So I'm excited about that. So those are kind of my life updates. Other than that, still kind of the same. Still in Boston. Um, Love it here. And yeah, same old, same old. So hope everybody had a really good holiday. But yeah, anyway, moving on. Let's get into the Chicago Bears. Where do I start, man? Bears finished 5-12. Wasn't the season that I thought initially going in. I think the preseason, having them on Hard Knocks, I think got me a little too riled up for the season and got my hopes a little too high. And I think Hard Knocks did that on purpose to get Bears fans a little too excited. And, I think that's a little naive on my part, which I will own. However, I, I do realize that this is not a talent issue on the Bears side. It's a coaching and an organizational issue, which I think will be corrected moving into 2025. And it's up to Ryan Poles to really correct that. If you look on a micro scale of the Bears season, and if you really break it down, it's not as much of a disappointment as uh, it looks in terms of just a record. So you look at Caleb Williams, he's a rookie, right? And you're comparing him to other rookies like Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels, right? And people are talking about Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels as like their great impact rookies, and Jaden Daniels is like the CJ Stroud of this year, right? And if you compare Caleb's numbers versus Jaden Daniels' numbers, like they're pretty close, right? They're pretty similar, and Caleb Williams has been dealing with turmoil and turbulence basically the entire year, right? And a much tougher division than Jaden Daniels, right? Not to discredit anything that Jaden Daniels has done, because I think he's phenomenal and he's going to do really good things in this league, and I don't think it's a shock where he's at and that he's doing great things. But I'm saying that to say that I think we need to elevate what um, we're saying about Caleb Williams at the same time, because he's had to deal with a lot. Coaching changes, multiple offensive coordinators in 1 year, offensive line changes, offensive line in terms of offensive linemen, they've had over 76 different combinations of offensive linemen in one season. And in terms of continuity and alignment and synergy, like that's just impossible over the course of 17 games. Like that's just impossible to be in sync with 5 offensive linemen when you have 76 different combinations over the course of 17 games. But if you look at all the stats that he's had, 3,500 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Like most quarterbacks, like you would take that if you're a fan of any team, right? 87.8 quarterback rating. Like that's pretty solid. Like if you would take that. Almost 500 yards additional rushing. If you take 4,000 all-purpose yards as your quarterback, 20 touchdowns accounted for. I mean, that's pretty solid for a rookie dealing with as much as Caleb has been dealing with. I tweeted out a week ago, or during the Packer game. I was like, imagine, because most of us work in offices, right? Imagine you're trying to send an email, right? And anytime that you send an email, like someone takes your keyboard and throws it across the room, right? That is the equivalent of every time Caleb Williams tries to drop back for a pass, because it's that hard for him to do his job because of how bad our offensive line is in terms of pass blocking. Like we have the cheapest offensive line in football, and it shows. Like things you can't go cheap on is toilet paper, transportation, and your offensive line, right? 3 things that you cannot go cheap on, and quarterbacks, right? Um, and the Bears have done that, and it shows. But if you look across, the other positions, like DeAndre Swift, 1,000-yard rusher. I think he was awesome in terms of running and pass game as well. Very productive. The other skill position players, Roma Dunze, had a good year. Keenan Allen, both over 700 yards. DJ Moore signed him for a really long time, so I love that extension. 1,000 yards. But we really need to fix the offensive line really bad. Like you could replace 4 starters on that offensive line, and then we would be good. And on the defense is solid. Like almost all the way around, except for Jonathan Owens. I mean, it's gonna suck losing Simone Biles as a fan, but Jonathan Owens, man, like he is bad. You could keep him as a backup safety, but he is bad. So, but if you look at the record with all of that, the Bears going 5-12, and if you look at some of the losses that we had, you think about like the Washington Commanders game. We lost on a Hail Mary. That should be a win. We should have swept the Packers. We're a block kick away from sweeping the Packers, right? Um, one of the Vikings games, we lost to the Vikings in overtime. One of the Lions games, the Lions beat the shit out of us one of the games, but the other Lions game, time management, we should have called a timeout. We barely got a playoff with 30 seconds left or whatever. We got one playoff in like 30 seconds, and then we threw some bullshit up to Roma Dunze when we could have called a timeout, right? And then the Seahawks 6-3 game, Caleb Williams rolling to his left, there was an absolute dart across his body to Rome, and it gets called back because of our backup left guard, or I think it was his left guard holding penalty. And he had two really bad holding penalties in that game that cost us. Um, and that's kind of the Bears season. That's 5 losses right there. That could have been wins. And then suddenly you're 10-7 instead of 5-12, right? Um, so when you look at it from a bird's eye view, it's not as much of a failure um season as the record indicates. When you look at all of the turmoil and turbulence and trials and that you had to go through over the course of this season. And for Caleb, I think in terms of how he handled himself professionally and post-game interviews, always showed up, never threw anybody under the bus, um, took accountability. When you look at him versus how Justin handled those interviews, like you could definitely tell like he was frustrated in those interviews. I don't know if Caleb looked at those interviews that Justin had and was like, all right, I can't be the same. Or if he took feedback from how he was at USC and was like, all right, I can't replicate those things when I become the Bears quarterback. But I really do value how Caleb Williams handled himself as the Bears quarterback this year. But priorities moving into this year, offensive line and safety help. I wouldn't mind running back help as well. DeAndre Swift is solid. Roshan Johnson is solid as well. I saw somebody in a mock draft that we get Ashton Genty because we somehow get offensive line help via trade or free agent signings. If we do that, I don't know about that. I don't think that would ever happen, but that was an interesting mock draft that I saw, or like scenario of fixing the Bears. I was interested. I don't know if I would be into it, but it was interesting. I saved it because I would like to circle back on it and look into it further, but I don't think that would happen. But we really need to nail the coaching hire and the offensive coordinator hire. We really need to nail this, and I'm interested if the Bears go safe here, or do we, does Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles, do they take a chance here? Like, I kind of worry that the Bears are gonna go safe and they're gonna go like the John Fox route and hire Mike McCarthy, which Mike McCarthy, he's been to the playoffs 12 of 18 seasons. So he has a good track record of getting to the playoffs. He helped develop Aaron Rodgers and Dak Prescott. So he's good with quarterbacks in their development, which he's proven to do that, which would be good for Caleb. Pretty good offensive mind. But when you get to the postseason, he's had a track record of not being the best with time management, and that seems to be an area of opportunity with the Bears right now. So I don't know if that fixes an issue. And his postseason record is 11-11. So does that get us over the hump, or is that kind of like a Band-Aid? Like, you have to look at the coaches and where we're at in the division, and you have to think, does inserting Mike McCarthy elevate us to a point to where we're going to beat the Packers? Are we going to beat the Vikings? Like, are we going to beat the Lions consistently in years to come? Like, we have to compete and beat those teams for the next, 5 to 7 years, right? Does Mike McCarthy do that? Or do you take a swing at Ben Johnson, which is the sexy pick, right? Everybody wants Ben Johnson, but Ben Johnson has the number 1 offense in the league. The Lions average 33 points a game, 400 yards of offense a game. But when you look at Ben Johnson, is Ben Johnson's success because of the weapons that he has around him, or is it because Ben Johnson is that good? So those are things that you have to think about. People were really in love with Brian Daboll in Buffalo, and then he's gone to the Giants and hasn't had much success, and that may not all be Brian Daboll's fault. but because the Giants are kind of a dumpster fire. Mm, sorry, Adam, like that's kind of what it is. But uh, I'm kind of worried about like what the Bears do here. Marcus Freeman has been a name that's been floating around too, and people are comparing Marcus Freeman to Sean McVay. Like that's like a Sean McVay type thing. Marcus Freeman, a really good leader of men. Like I wouldn't hate that either, but it's like it's a different animal in the NFL, and um, I'm interested on what's gonna happen. If I'm me, what do we have to lose? I would throw everything at Ben Johnson. Mike McCarthy, we know what Mike McCarthy is, right? Strawberry cheesecake, we know what it is. We know what it tastes like, right? Ben Johnson is kind of an unknown. Um, so I've also heard Brian Flores being thrown around as kind of a dark horse pick because him and Ryan Poles have a Boston College connection. So that's a possibility as well. So, I mean, I don't know what the Bears are going to do. Cliff Kingsbury is another option because of their connection with Caleb Williams. So that's a possibility there. Continuity is huge between head coaching and quarterback. So who knows, right? But I'm nervous because it's the Bears, and I've lived a long time, and I've seen Bears mess up a lot of things. Anyway, we'll find out soon. And I'll make another episode and give my thoughts of whether I'm happy or sad. But let's get into the college football playoff championship game, Notre Dame versus Ohio State. So um, i- it's it's gonna be a good game, I hope. I kind of knew going into this game that the line was going to be a little outrageous in Ohio State's favor just because of how they looked during their playoff run. Like they looked really good against Tennessee. They blew out Oregon. Um, so I kind of thought that, and then Texas, they looked. Um, it was a close game, but then they kind of outlasted them and then pulled away late. So I kind of thought that this would be at least a touchdown. I didn't think it would get to 9.5, and now it looks like it's around 8.5 now. Um, Over under 45.5. That seems right to me. And I do think Ohio State is going to win this game. I do think Notre Dame has a path to winning this game, but it's going to take Notre Dame being out of this world and Ohio State making some mistakes and being off their game. But I'm going to go over Ohio State's path to winning and Notre Dame's path to winning, and then my score predictions and what I'm betting personally on this game. So starting with Ohio State's path to winning. They need to get Jeremiah Smith going. I don't envision that he's only gonna have one catch for 3 yards again. I think Texas did a really good job of limiting him in terms of always having a safety over the top. I think Notre Dame is going to do something similar, but Notre Dame is really known for always playing man coverage, no matter who they're playing. When they played against Ohio State last year and they had Marvin Harrison Jr., they followed the same principles, playing man coverage. So it doesn't matter who you are. They're still going to do the same thing. I assume that they're going to shade a safety over the top over Jeremiah Smith. But if you're Ohio State, you have to get Jeremiah Smith in motion, kind of how the Vikings use Justin Jefferson, always moving. Same thing with the Cincinnati Bengals. Jamar Chase, always moving pre-snap. So if you get them in motion, it's very hard to cover in man coverage if they're in motion. Hard to jam them at the line if they're in motion. They did that versus Oregon, and that's how Jeremiah Smith got off in the first quarter. So I would look for Chip Kelly to get Jeremiah Smith in motion. In terms of defense, I would be interested how they guard Notre Dame. I don't envision Notre Dame scoring a lot of points anyway, because Ohio State's defense is so good and Notre Dame's offense is so run dependent. But I think that Ohio State is going to bait um, Notre Dame into throwing. Um, they're going to bait them into running the ball. First off, I think they're going to show too high, or they're going to show defenses to where they're going to show show defenses to where it looks like it's appetizing to run. So it's going to show like maybe like a cover 2 zone, or they're going to show like 2 high safeties to where they're not really stacking the box. So then they run the ball. But Ohio State's run defense is so good. Like Ohio State's defensive line is so good, and their linebackers are so good. And Caleb Downs comes downhill like a rocket to stop the run. I think it's not going to matter what they show. They're going to be able to do that. And if they show that, and they bait Riley Leonard to throw and make him a passer, it might get ugly. But I think also offensively getting Ibuka and Carnell Tate involved early, like they did against Texas, I think that's going to open things up for Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins to get involved in the running game. But I also envision them getting involved in like this screen game, swing passes as well. And overall, they just need to keep Will Howard ahead of schedule. I think Ohio State gets in trouble when, they get stuffed in the run game early, or, they get behind in penalties, and then you're at 2nd and 15 or 1st and 15 or 2nd and 12, and Will Howard's behind schedule. And then now you're looking at Will Howard having to make plays, and that's not really Will Howard. Playing behind schedule. So if Notre Dame can get him behind schedule, or Ohio State can keep Will Howard ahead of schedule, I think that's where Ohio State will be the most successful. But I think they'll be able to do that. So that's Ohio State's path. Notre Dame's path, they have to force turnovers, and Ohio State, they have to force Ohio State into penalties. They have to get off the field on 3rd down. So if they do force Ohio State into some penalties, force them a third and long, maybe they get a sack on Will Howard and it's 3rd and 15, or 3rd and long, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. They have to get off the field on 3rd down. They have to do that. Defensive line for Notre Dame, above average. They have to get pressure on Will Howard. If he doesn't set his feet, he will sail it. And Notre Dame's cornerbacks are ball hawks, and they will pick off Will Howard. So I think Will Howard, if they pick him off once or twice, I think Notre Dame's right in that game. So I think Riley Leonard, in terms of his quarterback play, I think he's going to use his legs because that's Will Howard's game. However, he needs to be at least somewhat of a threat throwing the ball to keep Ohio State honest. Otherwise, they're too fast for him to be able to run all over them. I said the same thing about Georgia, that I didn't think Riley Leonard was going to be able to run against Georgia, but I think Ohio State's a little bit of a different animal than Georgia. And Jeremiah Love is going to have an amazing game as well. But I think Riley Leonard is going to have to be at least a little bit of a threat throwing the ball. I think he needs at least 175 yards passing, maybe 200 for them to win this game. But I do see a path for Notre Dame to get there. I think their line in the sand in terms of scoring, I think they need at least 28 points to win this game. I don't think that they get that many. I think they score around 21, maybe. But I don't think that they get that many. I think they finish around 17-ish. So my prediction for the game, I think Ohio State, it's somewhat close around halftime, but I think kind of like the Texas game, I think Ohio State wins comfortably. My score prediction is around 30 to 17. So I think Ohio State covers the 8.5. I am taking the over for this game. I think the score ends up being 30 to 17. So, and then Ohio State, being a Wisconsin fan as well, I hate Ohio State, but congratulations to the Buckeyes for winning the national championship. So I got about a minute left because I do want to stick around the 30 minutes as promised, but I haven't done an episode for a while, so this may go over just because I haven't done one in a while. But I want to get my NFL picks off for the divisional round, so I got 4 games. So 8 picks total with the line and the over under. So starting with Houston and Kansas City, this is Pat Mahomes' time. Same with Travis Kelce. They don't lose this time of year. So I think Pat Mahomes is undefeated in divisional rounds, so he's never lost this particular game. So Kansas City -8, I think they cover that. In terms of the over/under, 41.5, I think that they cover that as well. So I'm taking KC -8 and the over. Washington and Detroit. Detroit is 9.5 point favorite. I do think that they cover that. The Commanders have been a great story all year, but I do think that the little Cinderella comes to an end. I do think Detroit is on a mission this year. Dan Campbell is going to have the boys ready, and I think Ford Field is going to be rocking. And the over under 55.5, that's just a lot of points. I don't think the Commanders are going to score a ton in that game. So I'm going to take the under in that game. The Rams and the Eagles. I think this is going to be an ugly game. Philly -6.5. I don't love that because I just don't trust the Eagles offense because they've been kind of Jekyll and Hyde this year. So I'm just doing Eagles money line. I think they win, but I'm not sure by how much. It could be 10. It could be a field goal at the end of the game. So I'm really not sure. Over under being 43.5. I do think it's going to be a little bit of a shootout just because Matthew Stafford and the Eagles are they are susceptible to scoring a lot. So I am taking the over in that game. And then lastly, Baltimore and Buffalo. Like, this is going to be incredible game. So I'm glad this is the last one of the weekend. Baltimore -1.5. I'm taking Buffalo and the points. And then the over under 51.5. I think this is going to be an awesome game. I think this is going to be a shootout. I think whoever has the ball last is going to win. And I'm taking the over. So those are my picks for this weekend. I'm at 31 minutes, so a little off, but I haven't done a show in a year, so I try to keep it around there. So I think I did pretty good. So keeping me honest, I'll do better next week. But glad to be back as a commit. I will do better by posting more of these. But other than that, thanks for indulging with me. Happy to be back. Excited to talk to you guys more. Leave comments on Spotify, but this show will be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. And yeah, talk to you guys soon. All right. Love you guys. Bye.